Hi everyone, thank you very much for joining me. My name is Nima Khorramrooz. I'm a linguist and your host of this fascinating podcast show, the Talk with Nima show. Today's episode is a very interesting one for a couple of reasons. Firstly, this is the very first English episode because the previous episodes that we've kind of recorded and conducted, they were in Farsi. So this is the very first episode in English. So from now on and moving forward, we're going to be having or producing episodes in English and in Farsi. So given that this episode is in English, what will happen for the benefit of the Farsi speaking audience is that the snips of this episode will be kind of chosen and then uploaded on social media platforms with the Farsi subtitles, and eventually the entire episode will be subtitled. So then this will help the Persian speaking community to kind of get to know the content and the things that is going to be discussed within this episode. Now, with this in mind, let me just try to talk very briefly about today's kind of topic. It's called An Algerian Woman's Journey Abroad. It's a very fascinating and very interesting topic, hence I have a very dear guest here with me to discuss this topic with you guys. Before then, let me just remind you to please subscribe to the channel, the Talk with Nima podcast show. And if you haven't already done so, and I'm sure you have, and please do try to like the videos, do try to leave comments for us, and if you have any complaints, compliments, or anything of that sort and nature, then please get in touch with us. Now, I'm just going to introduce today's dear guest. I have with me Nari Boudali. She's a discourse analyst and she co-leads seminars and lectures at Manchester Metropolitan University on culture and media studies. Nari's work explores how we try to navigate silence and how we create space for voices that are often not being heard. And she works on the crossroads of health communication and digital media with a focus on stigmatized topics and social change. So I'm very delighted and honored and privileged to have Nari with me, an expert in discourse studies, and with the colorful background that she's coming from, I'm sure that she would provide us with an awful lot of interesting information about this topic. So Nari, thank you very much, first of all, for joining me, for accepting the invitation. If you want to say hi to the audience, then the floor is yours.
Thank you for having me. And yes, hi everyone. For today, I'm really honored that I've been given the chance to speak up and to say things that probably I always wanted to say. And I just want to highlight something about today's podcast is that usually whenever I watch podcasts and I go like to see things on the internet in order to learn from, there is always those videos about international students or international immigrants and immigrants in general, or international women who are trying to probably navigate in new cultures, as we just said. And there is always this pattern, a linear one, which always says, oh, there is struggle in their home countries, and then there is a resistance, and then there is resilience and success. Yeah. I really want to discuss it today from a different point of view, not a cliche. I'm not saying with all due respect to any experience, but we've seen that a lot in so many podcasts, and I really want to see it from a different angle, from an angle of reflexivity and how it's not linear. It's not always challenges, struggle, resilience, and success. Success is redefined, and you can see it from different angles as well. So yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think that sounds like a great plan. So yeah, we can do this then. With that in mind, then Nari, could you be kind enough to kind of walk us through your journey from Algeria to where you are now, and then as you've said, if you could provide us with this kind of personal reflection upon your experience, I think your audience would be delighted to learn about. Yeah.
So as I said, I'm not gonna just recall any kind of a cliche, but the reason behind the choice of the topic, as I've just said before the start of the episode, is sadly that I've came across a news about a student. She was stabbed to death in Germany, Her name is Rahma, so Allah yarhamha, or peace upon her soul.
Yeah,
It's quite sad, but what caught my eye is the comment section. They were all saying the same thing, that oh my god, like probably because she traveled alone, that was a reason that she was not safe, so she needed a Twitter mahram, culturally known as a mahram or religiously. And that made me think, and yeah, I've done a little research. Surprisingly, I found out that a lot of study, they have the same pattern, that whenever they study the risk and the extent of risk of international students abroad and how many people there are at risk of violence or being of violent victimization, if you want.
Yeah.
There is a gendered study that was done in 2018. I don't recall the name of the researcher, sadly, and it says that first, international students comparing to home students, they're not always at risk of violence comparing to home students. That first, and second, comparing male to female in a gendered analysis, they found out that female are less likely to be victim of violence as international students, just to highlight in the context of international students.
Okay.
And that study, it was in the United States. Probably some people would have negotiated reading to that, and they would say no, because it's not the same context. The lady, she was killed in Germany, which is a different context.
Yeah.
And plus, probably because she was wearing a veil, so she was wearing a hijab, which is a symbol of a religious, it has a religious connotation in a way.
Yeah.
That's true, but still, it shows that international students, they are not at risk always. And also, if we're gonna go and check the background of the US, there is a lot of violence in the US.
Yeah.
If they're not victims, means there is a link between the two. There is a pattern between what I'm saying and this study. It was just a highlight, and that made me think about my own experience and reflect about, is that true? Am I at risk because I'm abroad? Or did I do a wrong choice by going abroad by myself?
Yeah.
Honestly, like reflecting on my journey, I don't think that the case. I feel that I'm totally safe. And speaking of the culture and my background as an Algerian, I don't really feel that I'm living a change or shift or cultural shock, which is quite interesting, because this is why I said I'm not going to just say cliche and oh my god, it was a struggle and I came here and it was cultural shock and I felt the freedom. It's not really the case, because I only feel that my relationship to my surrounding, it became a bit different. In what way? We're going to see that.
That's interesting, Mary, and thanks for sharing this. So, it was horrific to learn about the death of this young lady. And you say she was
26.
26, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's terrible. Just even thinking about the gravity of this attack. Do you think there is some sort of misogynistic narratives involved in people stabbing girls that are coming across as being culturally different because they wear some sort of dresses that some people may not try to respect and things like that? So had it not been a girl and had it been a boy, do you think the same thing would have happened?
That's an interesting question, because I was thinking, like, is the reason that she was showing that symbol, she was wearing the hijab, that she was more vulnerable and she was more attracting attention to her, or the reason that she was alone living abroad? And to be fair, I cannot tell you the answer, because still, like, the case is under investigation, and it is said in the comments and in the case that it is a racism issue.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think that it doesn't matter if it's a male or a female. The problem is not the victim. The problem is the person who committed the issue or the crime. So it's not about is a female or a male, is she wearing a veil or not. It's about that person and the issue that he had and why he did such a thing. So for me, I don't think it's a matter of a gender. But when it comes to the society and how the social media is translating it in a way that became very gendered and misogynic. Because would you say the same thing for a male who traveled? You say he needs protection. Is he gonna go with a bodyguard? I don't get it. So here it's the whole thing and the difference, I would say.
And why do you think that there is this common belief that young female immigrants are required to be accompanied by someone else when they are traveling abroad, because this kind of questions the autonomy of those young capable ladies, because we are somehow trying to dictate that they are not capable enough of protecting themselves and they require to have a mahram, or they require to have someone to accompany them. And if this isn't the case, then we're going to have a complete foreigner attacking them or stopping them. So this kind of fits into this narrative that if she had a mahram with her, then she shouldn't be stabbed. And she was stabbed because she didn't have anyone to accompany with her. So this kind of questions females' autonomy as well. Don't you think that's the key?
Yes, I would say, yeah, I get your point, but at the same time, there is different narratives surrounding this. Some people would say it's just a matter of you don't know what to say and you come onto the social media and you want to blame something on someone. We have all of, like on social media, there's always this imbalance between the need of accountability and the fear of the mob justice, because you don't know what to say. You don't know if what you say comes on a solid background or not. So when they say, oh, she needed a mahram, it's just a way of blaming the situation on a reason. And this thinking or this narrative, it comes from a cultural and a religious background, where there is different narratives again about this, and they say either it's for protection, which doesn't really make sense, but for other narratives, they just say it's different timing now. And since the lady is capable, as you said, to be autonomous and to travel alone, so she's capable as well to defend herself and to make the right choices, just as a male. But at the same time, I feel that it's unjust for the male to say such narratives. We always think, oh, probably it's misogynic, but at the same time, like, what about the male? Is he supposed to always do the role of protection? And is he not, I don't know, you can be a victim even as a male,
of course,
for violence and for other things. And this is why I checked the studies. And the pattern was that, yes, international students, male international students, they are more victim and are more likely to be at risk than female. So why we don't talk about this? And what about the mahram in this case? Should we have a mahram for a male as well or not?
You're absolutely right. I think this is a very interesting point that you've said. Unfortunately, because of all these narratives, like the way we perceive gender, the way we perceive culture or identity and things like that, I think we put too much pressure on genders. Societies have certain expectations for female students or for women in general, and the same applies to men, especially in some certain contexts. That men have to play the role of being protected, and if they don't fulfill the expectation, then they're not being seen as real men. And as a result of that, men are also being silenced, and we had many cases of men being sexually assaulted, raped, intimidated verbally and physically and emotionally, but they had to kind of keep their mouth shut because they were men. They were classified as men. And they had to come across as very strong, as masculine, and things like that, so they couldn't verbalize this. And that's why studies do not reflect upon this, because not many men are brave enough to verbalize the incidents that happened to them, because of the way that I think the cultures are perceived this. I think, it's a very bad
That's
point.
quite interesting what you're saying, because a lot of studies that were mentioning this point as well, that as we know, social sciences and research in this field of study is not always 100%, always can be biased and can be related to different factors and parameters. And one of them is what you said, the stigma around reporting that you were a victim by both, but specifically by male as well, because they are not supposed to be victim of such things. They think that if I report this in certain cultures, it's translated into being weak, or not fulfilling what is your role in the society, or what's supposed your role be in the society. So
interesting. So Nari, you're a very kind of multicultural, trilingual person, because knowing more than one language provides you with the opportunity to get to learn the culture of the people that speak that language. And obviously, you're lucky enough to know more than one language. And this means that you got to learn about different cultures and different backgrounds. And given that you have been living here, working here, studying here, and thriving here academically and all that, because Nari is also very talented, I must say this, very talented, very academically driven, very determined, and I know this because I've been working with Nari for quite some time. So do you feel a dual identity between cultures, given that obviously you're coming from this very colorful background, you know more than one language, and you've been living here? Do you feel more westernized than before, or do you still have connections, strong connections with your own culture, or do you now have a kind of a dual identity now?
Yeah, I do like this question because it's quite related to the title as well, Roots and Roads, because you're always trying to find this balance while navigating a new culture or new country. What I would say is quite surprising probably, but honestly, like the way I dress or the way I think, it's definitely not remained the same, but I don't feel the difference between in Algeria and here. Right. The only difference is you feel less supported. And I would say not less supported in case that, oh, you're far from your family, but it's just a different way of support. You see it differently. And this is why I said it's about being reflective. Yes. And it's about seeing things differently and redefining what is support, what is success. So for me here, I built another connection with my family. When I lived far from them, I feel that I'm more close to them, which is quite interesting for me because when I was packing my luggage going to England when I first came to Canterbury, I truly thought that, oh my God, like I'm losing this emotional support. I'm going to a country and I'm going to live by myself. Yeah. It ended that, no, like I built new connections in this country, which is a different kind of support by colleagues, by friends, by supervisors, by literally by colleagues at work or at uni. Yeah. Different contexts, but still it's about you and learning how to build these connections. And what is really interesting is the way I'm shifting in this relationship with my family and with my surroundings in Algeria, because calling them is not the same as being with them. Yeah, of course. But I would say when I was in Algeria, I lived in another city as well because I went to uni in another city. And I feel that the more abroad or the more far I go, the closer I am with my family, because they feel that need that, oh my God, she's alone, we need to support her, which is not the case when you live with them. Of course, yeah. So it's quite, I don't know, probably you feel that it's contradictory, but this is what I'm reflecting on. I feel that the relationship is different than when you live with them, but it's definitely stronger. It's just another way of seeing things, another way of reflecting on things.
That's very interesting. I quite like the points that you've made here. And I think this more or less is shared amongst many people that are living abroad, because that would open more opportunities when you live abroad. It's not just about boosting your self-confidence and finding new friends and all that, but it's also about trying to adjust yourself and adapt to the new situation. And by that, it means that you're going to have some understanding about the culture of the country that you want to travel. How much did you know about the British culture prior to traveling here to the UK? Okay. Did you know about fish and chips?
I did. Unfortunately, I did. So yes, I did because I have...
Just funny joke, right? Yeah.
I have family who live here. I have my uncles, both of them, they live here in Leicester. So I had the contact with the culture. I had my cousin, they come to Algeria, I always talk about the culture. And honestly, I always had in mind that I want to go abroad, either to England or France or Canada, but I had this goal in my mind that once I finish my study, my high school or my university, I need to go to study abroad and to build a career abroad as an experience. And as I said, it's all about the progress as a human being and your reflexivity about your development and how you're seeing things differently among different contexts.
So given that, politicians here in this country, let's just try to get into the interesting world of
Your
politics.
domain.
Yeah, so my favorite topic. But I'm not going to dominate this because this is obviously Nari's time and space. But politicians here, they claim that this country is a free country. And I'm not disputing that. I'm not saying it's not a free country or it is a free country. I'm just trying to relay the messages they say. They obviously have a very interesting perception on freedom when they said that this country is a free country. Mm-hmm. So given that you're multicultural and you've been, living in different places and spaces, how do discourses around freedom or democracy or modernity and things like that operate differently in Algeria and in the UK? So I assume that freedom in Algeria is a slightly being seen, or maybe more than a slightly, correct me if I'm wrong. So freedom in Algeria is different from freedom here in the UK. How much did you know about the differences between that, and how did you or could you adapt yourself to, the new way of living?
Yeah, I would say I understand where you come from, but it's always about how you see things and how you're gonna put them into a context. So for instance, when we say the freedom of speech, I would say that every country all over the world are trying to show that yes, we have the freedom.
Are you sure about every country?
Probably not every country, but yes, let's talk about Algeria and England. So yes, Algeria and England both, you can see that trying to give voice to students. Bear in mind that as a student or as a female, I had the right to go, that's a government thing, because in some countries, you're not allowed to go again without a mahram. In Algeria, I had the freedom to go by myself, to travel. I'm 18, I have the right to go and to travel either for tourism or for study or anything. Plus, at a certain period of time when I first came, I was sponsored by the government. So that's even another support. And I would say that they do care about the female situation in Algeria from a government's perspective, but then there is always a conflict between what the government sees and what the cultural and embedded in the culture difference. It can fall into conflict sometimes, but when it comes to comparing how I live the freedom here and here in England and in Algeria, I would say I was not really involved in things as an international. I don't vote. I didn't do a lot of things that politically can be discussed.
Yeah.
But what I've noticed is that it's just different ways of speaking about freedom, but different ways of applying it as well. And I don't know if you know or not, but it's like on social media, I'll just relate it to social media. So there is always this censorship. You're free to say whatever you want, but there is censored words, there is censored things, and censored topic. And the censorship, it's different from one country to another, but it's always there. So either in Algeria and England or the US, there is censored topics and there is taboos and stigmas. And it's just different topics. I study health communication and stigmas in health communication, and I was really surprised that taboos in health communication for Algerian women is quite the same internationally.
Can you provide us with an example just for the benefit of the audience?
When it comes to reproduction and when it comes to things like talking about period or talking about very, sexualized topic, it's always the same. It's always considered
and
as
is it being seen negatively?
Seen differently, that's what I'm saying. It depends on the context. You see things differently. The topics are different because we don't share the same values, or even though the word now is a small village, we always say that because of social media,
of course,
due to social media, not because of social media. And we always say that we see things differently based on our backgrounds. It's all about social representation and the way we portray things and we portray ourselves and the way we see those stigmas. And it's different from even one family to another, not even from one country to another. And in my family, probably, again, I was allowed to go to study, to discover a new place and to navigate it. And I had the freedom to do so. A different family in Algeria, probably they wouldn't allow it. And they will have their own way of seeing things, and they will debate it differently, and doesn't mean that it's always wrong, but it's worth debating.
Of course, yeah. No, I mean, again, you've just pointed out a very interesting topic here, Because culture obviously is a very broad topic, and it needs exploring, and we need an awful long time to discuss culture and cultural differences. But based on the points you're making, I can say, and again, this could be subjective because this is the life that you live.
Yeah, definitely.
And of course, as you've said, people could have different perceptions on things. So you didn't see too much difference in terms of freedom, because the things that you've had in Algeria, you have them more or less here, and you didn't have to fight for them, or you didn't have to ask for them. You just happened to have them. So, you were very lucky to have those privileges.
It's a privilege, yeah.
Which in your case, this makes you to be a very kind of privileged person. Yeah?
I would say, yes, I totally understand. Yeah, definitely. I would say we should look at portrayal and self-representation or social representation from different perspectives. And saying this doesn't mean that every single woman in Algeria or in Arab countries or in North African countries, they're having the same opportunities and the same privileges. But at the same time, I would say that there is a lot of pre-assumptions and stereotypes linked and attached to Arab women, and I see you coming, Arab woman, Ahmadiyya woman, it's Algerian women in general, because that conflict about the background. But what I wanted to say is that being from those countries, it's always seen within stereotypes that, oh my God, those women are oppressed, those women, they cannot do this, they cannot do that, they should wear veils, they should do this, they should do that. And you come here, and instead of fighting the social expectation from Algeria, like they think, you start facing the social expectation and the pre-assumptions that you're facing here in England, because they don't know much. They don't know much about the history of female Algerian, and that female women, they have a place, they have a really place. They did a lot of things. We had the Algerian Revolution. They participated in that. For me, it's a pride. And I see your point when you say because you're privileged, you don't see what other people are struggling. That's totally true. I see how they struggle. And I'm not saying that it's the same experience for everyone. But at the same time, I'm glad that government-wise, it's not what people think. So a lot of stereotypes are not there. And I would say something even about countries like, I don't know, like Iran. Yeah? There is this Algerian YouTuber, he went to Iran recently, but before what's happening. And the pictures or the videos that he was showing is not something that I expect from Iran. Definitely not.
Of course.
I was surprised. So just to say how we don't know what is happening in countries. And I thought that probably like every woman would be veiled and stuff. It's not. It's not the case. It's not what I've seen. So this is why I'm saying that when you come here, you come with a lot of responsibilities because people are expecting from you in your society and from your family. But at the same time, you arrive and you find a lot of stereotypes that you need to face, and it's coming from both sides.
You're absolutely right. And again, this is, I think, because of this lack of understanding, lack of knowledge that people have about different cultures. And in some cases, because some people are not well traveled and they haven't explored the other spaces and the other countries. And also it's very easy to just rely on kind of stigmatized topics or to just rely on stereotypes. So for instance, when it comes to England, you just say that, the only thing that people here consume is fish and chips.
Sure.
It's a very overgeneralized kind of assumption that you can make depending on the context, but it's very easy to just make assumptions and go with that. And of course it's quite more difficult to try to unpack and unravel those assumptions and to get to the bottom of this and to see exactly what it is going on within a culture. Because as you've said, there is this assumption that everyone in Iran wears the hijab, or people are being imprisoned and things and that, or everyone is pursuing what the government calls as trying to enrich uranium and things like that. But then when people get to actually travel to the country and to see the country. They say that, again, this goes back to digital media platforms and media representation. They see that the way things are represented in media is so different from the actual reality, to the point that you would see that the reality is not being represented in the digital media at all. And in the case of Algeria, I think there is no or I would say that there is this lack of understanding or lack of knowledge about Algeria.
Yeah.
It's a great country. I've actually studied about the history of Algeria, and I could say that it has a very strong kind of old history of people fighting for freedom and democracy. And many people there are actually very well educated. It's a very beautiful country. Geographically wise, and people just don't get to see all these beauties. That's the point. Yeah.
Again, about media representation and how media is distributing the light, I would say. So they would highlight certain topics and not other, and people would believe that. That module that I was happy to teach and to be involved with you, trial by media. You can see how probably someone is portrayed as a guilty or as innocent just based on political views or racial or socio-economical parameters, which is quite interesting. Remember the O.J. Simpson case and how the tournament, like it's turned to something different just because of the racial impact or because of how the lawyers made their work and they linked it to the society through social representation. And it's quite interesting to see that it happens even with countries, so big countries. Algeria is the biggest country in Africa.
Yes.
And it lacks representation. Even this lady, God bless her soul, we didn't see much in the Western media about her, that she was killed in Germany, which is quite interesting. Like why? Why there is underrepresentation of certain communities on social media? But yes, I think it's always, we need to reflect about that, and it's our role to speak up and to show those things, because as I said, it's the way you see things. Probably other people, they don't see it the same way or from the same perspective as you. So don't expect them to show the things that you want to see. If you don't see it, start a podcast and show what you want to what you want to see.
That's why I have you here, and I think obviously yes, you need to be more vocalized about these issues, interesting and important issues, and this is in fact one of the things that Nari has done over the years. So she has been trying to represent the voices of those that have been silenced over the years, and that's why I'm very happy to have you here. And so you were speaking about languages and obviously these stigmatized kind of topics that are shared across languages. We talked about like things like women's fertility and things like that. And it was interesting for me that some of these are shared across languages. I mean, we may even use the same sort of expressions cross-linguistically. Given that you speak 3 languages perfectly well, and obviously you have this working knowledge of other languages, and by 3 I mean Arabic, French and English, how does a language impact how you express yourself in different contexts? So you're now here, obviously, and you do your research here in English. Obviously you use a very academic, formal writing. And we know it's a very boring type of writing, the academic writing, just for the benefit of those that would like to get into the academic world. But then the way that obviously we use English to express ourselves is very different from the way you would use French or you would use Arabic. Tell us about how you would express yourself in these languages, and if you have any examples.
Yes, definitely. So first, it's not just about the languages, even about the dialects, not even like I speak Arabic, the classical Arabic that I've learned at schools, but as well I speak the Fusha, and as well I speak the Darija, which is the Algerian dialect, which is a mix of some languages of Amazigh, Arabic, some Spanish words, and
a lot of French as well.
A lot of French, a lot of French words that we pronounce them differently in the Darija. So this combination, it makes it different. So speaking Arabic doesn't mean that in Arabic it's always the same, because a lot of people they will always, oh, you speak Arabic, so you speak like I don't know, like someone from Qatar or someone from Egypt, which is not the case. We have different dialects. But even in English, so when I came to England, I was like, oh my God, I don't understand people here. I remember I was working in my first job. It was not in academia, so it was like a student job. I started and people were calling dinner tea.
Oh yeah.
I was so confused. Believe me, I didn't know. Like, people would tell me I'm having tea, and then I see them having the dinner. I'm like, oh my God, is that tea or dinner? Or is it like dinner after tea? I never understood. It's just an example. There was a lot of things. So it's just about, as you said, being in this country. It's not always about being an academic.
Yeah.
So I've used English in different contexts, and I would say that even from my personality here in the podcast, or when I am doing my role as a lecturer with my students, it's different. So for instance, even when I teach the foundation year, and I had the chance to teach master degree, oh my God, that was intimidating. I remember I went and I was like, oh, like, looking at my age, I'm a millennial, I'm 31 years old, and dealing with Gen Z and the new generation is quite interesting, but dealing with a master's degree, it was more scary for me. And it was, both of them was quite nice, but I would say that the references that I link in my lecture were different. So I wouldn't say to my master's students, I don't know, like example from Kendra Lamar or from Childish Gambino and stuff. But for my foundation year, I found that when I mentioned those things from my millennial background, they really like it. They found that, oh my God, she's the old school, so I'm the old school for them. But for my master students, it was more academic, more focused on the content. And it's just different ways of seeing things. When it comes to languages, it's even more interesting, because I definitely believe in linguistic relativism and determinism and the superior worth theory, where in simple words, it's just about how thoughts and languages are connected, and the way you speak, it impacts in a way or another, and it shapes in a way or another the behavior that you have. And it's a quite interesting thing. Recently, I came across a video of this Algerian influencer as well, and she was talking about how we always, in our dialect, blame things on we give, I don't know, like we always blame anything that happened to us to our surrounding and not to us. So we don't take accountability. We're not responsible for a failure, we're not responsible for missing a bus, we're not responsible for anything. So for instance, I would say bus, which is the bus passed, or the bus did just go, and I couldn't catch the bus. And that's quite interesting as an example, because in England you wouldn't say it this way, you would take responsibility for things. And probably I'm talking about the academic English. I don't know. Probably in dialects it's quite different. So the way you think, it changes your perspective of the world. And it definitely has to do with either you're narcissistic, you're humble, you're this or you're that. I know, like those words, it's quite a big words to say, or strong words to say. But at the same time, it means, when it comes to your perspective about the world and how you perceive the world, and it has to do with the language you speak. When I speak in French, I feel that I'm a totally different person. I cannot even explain it in what way, but the expression I use, it shapes the way I see people. Even the tone, there is different frequencies and tones in languages, and that shapes as well the way you see the world and the way you voice and the way you take ownership or authority when speaking, and that's quite interesting.
It's very interesting. I'm a huge fan of superior worth hypothesis. I remember I studied this with my beloved teacher Semi. He was the one that taught me this hypothesis for the very first time. And I think, yes, you're absolutely right in saying that. I think thoughts kind of determine the language that we use, and languages determine the thoughts that we have. And I was thinking about myself, my own experience, because I've noticed that when I speak English in a very formal, posh and academic way, because this is the language I use in my workplaces, this is the language I use to liaise. But then when it comes to my emotion, I've noticed that I use Farsi to express my emotion. And hence, I don't naturally use English to express my emotions. And I think this is to do with, how languages shape your thought and how thoughts shape the language that you use. If you know just one language, then obviously you have to use that language to express yourself in a way. And perhaps maybe this wouldn't be too much of a concern to you. But when it comes to different languages, then as you've said, you use different tone, and perhaps you use one language to express yourself, the other just to talk about serious issues and things like that. So I'm a different person when it comes to Farsi, for instance, because I use my emotion. I recite poetry because Farsi is very rich when it comes to poetry. But in English, no, English is boring, and I just use it for academic settings.
Yeah, even the link between French and English is quite interesting because of the history and the Norman and how prestigious is French comparing to English and how it is used in different contexts than English. That impacts the way you perceive the word and the way you
and also,
act as well.
You've mentioned something about Arabic, which again leads to this kind of misunderstanding that every single Arabic country, they speak Arabic in a way that, if they use that Arabic or that version of Arabic in other countries, then people from that country would understand it, which is not the case, because linguistically speaking, Arabic is what we call a diglossia kind of language. And languages like Arabic that are classified as the diglossic languages, they are difficult in a way that the vernacular of Arabic that is being spoken in Algeria is very different from the one that is spoken in Saudi Arabia or in Kuwait or in other Arab countries. Hence, they either use English or they use Fusha to communicate with one another. Because if you use like Kuwaiti Arabic or Emirati Arabic and in Syria, this would be very amazing because they wouldn't understand the word of what you say.
Yeah, that's true. It's quite interesting because there is this thing that we always notice as North Africans. So when it comes to Morocco, Algeria, and Tunisia, we do understand the different dialects.
Yeah.
So we have this ability to speak different dialects. When it comes to the other countries, they find that the North African dialects are so difficult, and this is what's always said. And I would say it's due to two things. First, because of the use of different languages in our dialect, which is not the case for them. So they think because you don't have access, we don't have this elite exposure to those French, to Spanish language, so you cannot speak them. You don't understand the words, so definitely you don't understand if you don't understand the context. But at the same time, we do understand because it's just a different dialect, but it's all in Arabic. And also the second point is the exposure on social media, because we grow up watching probably Egyptian, Lebanese or Syrian. And those are three dialects that I've just mentioned. I feel it's well spoken around all Arabic countries and they can understand them just because of the exposure on social media. And here we can always talk about the influence of social media, not even social media, but even the traditional media. So we grow up watching probably series in Egyptian or series in Lebanese. And because of that, you have access to these dialects. And it's all about their presentation and presenting your culture.
That's great. So we are nearly getting to the end of this episode, Nari. I just want to say to the audience that these topics that Nari has touched upon, that this is just an introductory kind of episode, because all these topics require more time and require us to kind of delve into them thoroughly to discuss them. So we will have Nari again just to kind of discuss these. For now, she just provided us with her personal reflection on each of these topics. Especially one of the topics I would be keen to learn from you is to talk more about these misogynistic narratives around like female Muslims that are living abroad. And this is something that we can surely discuss in the upcoming episodes. Final question here for you, Nari. And by the way, once we're done with the episode, Nari would still be with us for the 2-minute podcast. And this is going to be her space to talk about whatever she wants to talk. And this is different from this actual episode. So this actual episode will be uploaded onto the YouTube, and then this 2-minute podcast will be uploaded a week later to the channel. Final question, what advice would you give to women navigating similar journeys? Now, Algerian women that are watching you at home and they are hoping to get here to the UK or to come to the European countries. As an expert, as someone who has lived through all these kind of things, as a very successful lady, what advice would you give to those women watching you right now?
Okay, I would say to start with, it's about finding the right place and finding the right opportunity. And there is something, you remind me just, there is a book that I really like by Nima Khorramrooz. And it speaks about what we were saying, about how life is linear and there is always, like he says something, a theme which is quite interesting, that you just live once, there is no reset button, which is quite interesting. It's come from Nietzsche thoughts and Spinoza, but what I really like about this, but I don't know if I agree with it or not, is yes, we live once, but you don't have the right to reset the button and start over again or to go back. It's like you go to an exam and you only have the paper of the exam to write on. You don't have any draft, so if there is a mistake, you just throw it and you start over. And this is quite interesting. So this is why taking the right decision is important. So I would just tell them, try to find the right opportunity and to study it properly, because there is no turning point. There is, yes, you learn from an experience, from mistakes, and you move on, but you cannot remove this experience from your life. So it's important, and it's, as I said at the beginning, it's not quite linear. This is the only point that I don't agree with Milan Kundera, that it's not, life is not as a line, so it's not always about challenges, struggle, resilience, and success. It can be success at a moment, and then there is a failure, and we learn from the failure, and then there is again success and resilience, and it's always up and down. So we need to keep that in mind. And I would say yes, if there is an opportunity, which is a good opportunity, and you feel that you can progress as a human being and you can develop and reach good opportunities, so why not? Just you need to go for it and explore.
That's great. So on that note, I want to thank you very much, Nari, for coming onto this podcast show. Thank you for accepting the invitation, and hopefully we will have you again just to discuss all these topics that you've mentioned to us thoroughly. Thank you very much, and thank you guys for watching us, for listening to us. Please do not forget to subscribe the channel and do not forget to leave comments. If you haven't already done this, you can start doing this. Thank you very much, everyone, and thank you once again, Nari, for everything. Bye now, guys.